Welcome to the Yarn Barn.
G'day and welcome to the Yarn Barn. We're here for another episode of In the Yarn Barn and we're with Andrew Weybry. G'day mate, how are you?
Good mate, how are you?
Good. I'm doing well.
That's good.
Yes.
Great to be here. After listening to our Treasurers podcast the other day. So, very good, very good.
Yes, and, you know, for all the ones playing at home, the second treasurer that we have had in the Australian Dads Network organisation followed, you know, the first inaugural member that we had as a treasurer was yourself.
Yes.
And
yes.
Nick is following in some big shoes to fill.
Well, as long as he keeps the book solid, that's all we really care about as a management committee. But you just got to keep on top of you, mate. And I did pick up your slight little comment about my receipts in Nick's podcast. So my receipts are all clear, mate. Unlike yours.
Yeah, yeah. We won't go into that. This being a public forum,
Correct.
The ACNC might be listening in and choose to audit us.
We don't need tax implications or anything like that. So
no. All right.
Very good.
Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate you dialing in from all the way over there in Melbourne. I mean, I think we're probably as far apart as possible. I mean, I could probably get up to Broome and you could probably get down to Tassie, but, you know, fairly speaking, we're as far across the country as we can. So hopefully the internet doesn't freak out on us like it did with Nick and I, the first session we had. So before we get started, what do you know? Tell us something that we don't know about you. Let's go straight off the bat.
What do you don't know? I have recorded 3 original songs of my own that I wrote.
Can I guess the genre?
You could, yes.
I'm thinking something like, you know, rock pop.
It's more acoustic, actually.
Right,
more acoustic. So I like the old acoustic guitar and acoustic, or not acoustic, but acoustic guitar and keyboard. So yes, I've had 3 songs that I've written. One was about my brother. One was about my partner, and the other one was just when I was in a really deep and dark place going through my first transplant. I wrote this really weird song, and I'm the only person who's ever heard it after I recorded it. So it will probably never see the light of day, that one. But the other 2, a lot of people have heard. So,
Awesome. Well, that's it. We've been connecting for a number of years now, and I've never heard that. So I am looking forward to. Maybe you could send us one of those recordings, and we could play it on the podcast when we do the recording. That'd be cool.
We could
no pressure.
Do that,
or you could record a new one.
I could record a new one. Correct.
Something about I don't know, Sean or Nick or someone on the committee that you you have a bit of banter with back and forward.
Yeah, probably Sean. So
cool.
That'd be a good idea. Might be able to do that. Cool.
All right. Awesome. Well, hey, let's get back to the meat of it all. What can you start off with a bit of background? Who's Andrew?
Who am I? Well, going back, the 21st of August 1973, the world as we know it changed forever at 2:21 a.m. in the morning. And from that moment on, pretty much it's like BC and AC. In this case, it was BA and AA. So, I was born in Bethlehem Hospital in Caulfield, not in Jerusalem. Grew up, mum and dad, brother, and when I was 3, I was diagnosed with a lung disorder, which was hereditary, and so was my brother. Unfortunately, in '86, he unfortunately passed away from cystic fibrosis, which is the illness we both have. There's over 365 different versions of cystic fibrosis, and he had one of the worst ones. And at that point in time, with my health, I had one of the lesser impacts on your life. I was still able to do everything like a normal kid, play cricket in 40-degree heat and have heat exhaustion and all that sort of stuff, and play footy, play basketball, play badminton. So I grew up with a pretty healthy lifestyle, but from basically 86 onwards, grew up as an only child. And it wasn't until going forward, left school, hated school, was no good at school. If there's any kids who ever listen to this, don't follow my lead. Work hard in school, as I tell my daughter all the time, to give yourself the most opportunities, because you never know what you might need in the future. Anyway, joined the bank, ANZ Bank, family business. Dad was in the ANZ Bank as well. And then moving forward through that for till 2014. During that time, I got married and had my now 16-year-old daughter. Got divorced, left the bank, and that was about the time, probably about 2 years before I got divorced. I had my first double lung transplant, which was a very minor procedure. Actually, the second most difficult procedure you can have from a surgeon perspective. Managed to whiz through that really easily. Was in ICU for less than 24 hours, was in hospital for less than 14 days. Had the transplant on 16 days. Had the transplant on the 15th of April 2010, and I was home sitting on my couch on the 31st of April 2010. So was all really easy. Everything went really well, and that was great. Got a divorce 2 years later, and then that's when my health went downhill. Being a single person, you don't necessarily look after yourself that well. All of us have been single at some point and lived on baked beans and toast, or Vegemite and toast, or whatever, or 2-minute noodles. I was doing that, and that's not something that I can do. I know I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or The Rock, hence the apparel, but not really. Underneath this, I'm a scrawny little dweeb with not much fat or muscle on me. So fast forward through that, and unfortunately in 2015, started dating my current partner. At the back end of 2015, unfortunately, those lungs, from the stress of a very messy divorce, not looking after myself, and just general wear and tear, I required a second one. Very lucky in that I crashed on the table 3 times during the procedure. The original procedure that I had back in 2010 was a 6-hour operation. This turned into a 18.5-hour operation. One of the longest transplants they've ever done, for a couple of reasons. One, because I crashed, so 3 times they had to stop what they were doing, revive me, and bring me back. And also, once they then get you stable, it takes a while for them to, get back to what they were doing. Second part was my left lung had actually attached itself. It was that damaged and deflated. It had actually attached itself to my heart. And so that required a lot of intensive work by the 2 surgeons working on that area to try and pull my lung away so they could take it out before putting the new ones back in. That was pretty much most of 2015, having a relationship that no one knew about, juggling my parents coming in and my girlfriend coming in so that they would never meet, until one day my girlfriend was about to leave. Parents had come in early and my girlfriend's in her work uniform. She's a medical scientist. She's bending over, giving me a kiss, which looked like it was someone from the hospital giving me a kiss. And my mum walks in and goes, "What the hell's going on here?" So that was a nice introduction for mum and dad to Belinda. And I got out 3 days before Christmas. So that one was on the 23rd of October, and I practically spent 2 months in hospital. Leading up to today, where I am living in Abbotsford for the first time in probably 10 years. I'm in my own place. I have my own place, my own space, that I can call mine. I can come here whenever I want, or I stay at my partner's, depending on what happens there. She's got 3 kids, and being a stepdad can be hard sometimes. So sometimes it's nice to have your own place, and also with all the medical procedures I've had, that can take some quite a lot of energy out of me, and so sometimes you just need some downtime to be able to chill and relax. So unfortunately, over the last 3.5 years, I have developed skin cancers on my face in particular, partly as a result of sun exposure when I was a kid, but also partly because of the drugs, or the antibiotics, I should say, not drugs, that they put you on, don't exactly help with, they make the cancer come out quicker. So I may have ended up with cancer when I was 80. Instead, I've got it when I was 46. So I've spent the last 3 years, 25 operations during lockdown, pretty much did most of it myself, because over here in Melbourne, for those of you who aren't from Melbourne and don't know, we weren't allowed to have anyone in hospitals. Pretty much my partner or my dad would drop me at the front. I'd go in, have a procedure, come home 2 or 3 days later, to my partners or my mum and dad's. But a couple of times there I spent 2 weeks in hospital. And then June of last year, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Common theme for my life has been, no matter what, don't give up. And surprisingly, in September of this year, having been diagnosed with terminal cancer, quit my job, told that I pretty much had 12 months to live. So went and hired a fast car for a weekend, went to the Crown Casino here in Melbourne and got a suite with my best mate and his girlfriend and my girlfriend. Spent a crap load of money over a period of 4 months thinking, what the hell, doesn't matter. But then on the flip side, September, got told that I currently have no active cancer cells going around in my body. As one of my mates said, must be the luckiest bloke in the world to continually overcome life's challenges that I have had in front of me. I think I'm a pretty positive person, but yeah, those around me will judge that more than I will. So, and that's where we are today, sitting in my apartment, looking at the Collingwood clock. It says it is 5:50 on the Collingwood Town Hall. Being a Carlton supporter, not the best place to be. So I don't wear my Carlton jumper out at all. For all you Carlton supporters out there, you'll know what I mean, and AFL followers. And it looks like it's about to rain any moment now. So that's me in a nutshell over the last 49 years.
And that's all we've got time with. So
yeah, sorry about
thanks.
That's 45 minutes.
Oh man, there's so much in there, and I may have looked like I wasn't paying attention, but I was just writing some stuff down. But yeah, I mean, firstly, the most important part is that's probably the the best clock to look at from a Collingwood perspective. I'm a Collingwood supporter, as you know.
I know you are. Hence why I mentioned it.
I will make sure that I ask you for the time on a regular basis moving forward, knowing that will be the clock that you have to see as a Carlton supporter, and it slowly annoys you.
Or I could just look at my clock on my microwave, but yeah, either way.
No, that's not working. It's not accurate, so don't look at that one.
Okay.
The Collingwood one's probably actually 10 or 15 years behind anyway, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, we've talked a few times about, and in our committee meetings and stuff, we've heard parts of your story, but not all of your story. So, I mean, firstly, thanks for sharing that. Even though it is in a nutshell, there is a ton of stuff in there, and I think you're right. Like your mate was spot on. Like the level of adversity that you've overcome, in your lifetime is pretty phenomenal. And when you think of even just the the first issues with your brother, and a lot of people don't overcome losing somebody, let alone you going through that, going through life. I imagine there was going through school and all that kind of stuff. There was sense of guilt, or why him, and all that sort of stuff that was going through your mind as well. What, as far as growing up in a situation like that, what was that like?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I heard once I had my transplant. Actually, they talk a lot about survivor's guilt. Because someone dies, and usually it's an accident of some sort when you get a transplant. And it's well known that people who have had transplants can actually have survivor's guilt because they feel bad that they've been given an opportunity to live through the demise of somebody else and someone else's loved ones. So for a long time, I was really lucky in my group of friends, and a couple of them are actually part of ADN, Lee and Martin. I was really lucky that I had a couple of really close friends when Ben died, and we never talked about it, but they were always just there. And I was also lucky that one of my mum's younger sisters, she has twin boys and a younger boy, and they basically just adopted me like a brother. So I never felt alone, even though we were living in country Victoria. They were in Melbourne and whatever. I never felt alone, but it wasn't actually. I can remember the exact moment that it really hit me that my brother had passed away. I was 21. I was living with my first serious girlfriend, and we went over to my mum and dad's place for dinner, as we did most weekends. And we started having a few drinks and whatever, and Michelle was driving, and before I knew it, I was drinking port, which I have never had a drink of again since this moment, but effectively vomited all over my mum and dad's brand new carpet that they had laid, I think about 2 months before. So red port, there wasn't enough salt in anywhere to get the amount of port that was in that carpet. So, and that was the moment that it actually hit me that my brother had died. And so that took, and it was very funny in that my mum and dad, my dad still to this day, and it's 86, what is that, nearly 40 years now, still to this day, if my mum and I are talking about my brother, my dad will get up out of the room and go to his room or wherever, or go outside or whatever. He just can't talk about it. It was pretty devastating for my parents, but I knew I was loved. I knew I was cared for, and we did stuff together as a family around that grieving time, but we never spoke about it. We never spoke about him dying, because that was the easiest way for all of us, I think, more my parents, but to cope with the death of losing their son. When I was diagnosed, or when we were both diagnosed, the doctor who looked after me until I left the Royal Children's Hospital here in Melbourne actually said to my parents, so I was 3 at the time and my brother was just turned 2, basically said, wrap your kids up, love them as much as you can, give them as much as you can. They'll be both lucky to make double figures. So I kicked his ass by 39 years so far. So, and hopefully I can keep doing that. But that's sort of, mum and dad always knew that was going to happen, but it's still a shock when it happens.
Oh, for sure. It's, yeah, I mean, couldn't imagine having those words come out of a doctor's mouth, and as a new parent. Yeah. But I mean, at any stage of parenting, and then, so, I mean, to fast forward, then you've had those words said to you as well as an adult. So your parents have heard a doctor say that about you as a kid. And then, you fast forward a bit, and now all of a sudden you're sitting in that doctor's office and the doctor's saying pretty much the same words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I think, look, I don't know why, I don't know how. I've never gone out of my way to be optimistic about anything. But I suppose the easiest way, and I was really thinking about this when we went through the workshop with Mike. What was that, about 18 months ago? And I've always just taken when I get any news about my health, and for a bloke who's had over 95 operations and have had many times where I've been given bad news of varying levels, I just treat it like a process. And so I go away, as I did this day, and I remember as clear as mud. My mum had left 15 minutes before. You'd think that if a doctor was coming to tell you that you had terminal cancer, that someone might say to your mum, because it was the only person I could have in there for that day for an hour. Hey, can you hang around? You can hang around for another half an hour or whatever. Doctor just wants to see Andrew. But anyway, I was left by myself, which on reflection was actually probably the best thing, because I would have been worried about mum and how she was dealing with it. And I was glad my partner wasn't there. But I just treat it like a process. I absorb it all. I take it all in. Many tears were shed on that day. And then I sat down with my doctors. I sat down with my team, saw the oncologist, all that sort of stuff, and said, all right, what do we need to do? And they said, right, we're going to do radiation therapy, blah, 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 blah. And they just kept saying to me, but you got to realise this is terminal. This is not going to cure you. This is just going to prolong your life. And I'm like, yep, no worries, cool. So I'd resigned myself to the fact, my partner had resigned herself to the fact that that was going to happen. But I just treated it like a process, and I went in every day. I do everything that I need to do. 99.9% of the time, I do everything that they tell me to do. And I'm just lucky that with everything that we talked about with my team around that I was able to do that. But I've never been a person, to get back to your question, I've never been a person who has been overly down and sat there and gone, oh, why me? Why have I had 90 odd operations? Why have I had 2 double lung transplants? Why did I have a feeding tube before my second transplant? And the doctor pierced my stomach, and I've lost half my stomach, and nearly died of septicemia. I could be here all day asking that question, but the times that you're sitting there going, why, is times that you're not getting the information that you need to get yourself as healthy as possible, as quick as possible. And then I'm very process driven, hence why I worked in operations and got in the bank, in the fact of looking at the process and going, okay, this is the process I need to follow. I've had up on my bedroom wall, I've had flow charts of what I need to do for my health to get myself through that. And as I said, I've always been a very positive and optimistic person. I saw my brother die at age 12. I've seen lots of other people die. I've seen my partner's, I didn't physically see it, but I knew him before he passed away, and saw his kids lose their dad. And one of the key drivers for me has been Belinda, my daughter Kari, and Belinda's 3 kids to go, I never want to put my daughter in the position like Belinda's kids are, and I never want Belinda's kids to be in that position again where they're saying goodbye to someone that they've opened their hearts to and see me as a stepdad. But I've been like that from day one. So I don't know what genetic makeup I had in me, because my parents aren't positive in any way, shape or form. But like I suppose what Nick said the other day about something to do with your father's sins.
Yeah,
I've seen that
don't
about
continue your father's sins.
Yeah. I've always seen Dad being very negative when it comes to certain things, not everything, but certain things. And so I always I think I subconsciously made the decision to never be like that, and to always look at the positive in everything, as hard as that can be sometimes.
It's it is hard sometimes to do that, for sure. I think that balance of what you've just said then around, having to be against all odds. But then, you mentioned luck a number of times. And, I'm just wondering if, if it's luck, or if it is just that you have this positive mentality, you have this ability to go against the odds. And, when people, like when you've got specialists who have studied for decades to be in a position where they're saying to you, there's no hope, mate, it's terminal. We'll just run you through this process. But at the end of the day, it's just, we're flogging a dead horse here, and you're going, no, there's a process here. I'll follow your process. But, somewhere subconsciously your body and your mind is going, no, we can beat this. So there's you said luck, but no, I'm wondering if if you look a bit deeper, you might see that maybe there's something more to that as well. Because that's hard. I imagine to sit in front of somebody and someone says, "No, mate, it's no, it's not going to happen," and you're going, "No, I'll stick to the process, mate. Well, something will happen."
Yeah. I think it's about how you drive your own luck. So I think it is luck, but it's how you drive it. So if I had, for example, gone through that process or at any time in my life and just gone, oh, yeah, I'm stuffed. It's all over. And I reckon I did for a while, to be honest with you. I think most of June and half of July, when my partner and I and my mates were just amazing getting around me. Like one of my mates, he just kept saying, no matter what, mate, do not give up. You never know what might happen. He's been my best mate for 28, 30 years. Just went up and saw him in Queensland. And he just, no matter what. And I think if you dwell on things, then you can miss opportunities that can change your luck. I suppose is what I mean by the luck piece. And it was just that. Literally after, not even 24 hours, about 12 hours after finding out that news, I woke up and I can remember the doctor coming in and go, okay, mate, I want to talk to you about stuff. I go, yep, no worries. So tell me about it. What's it doing? Where is it in my lymph nodes? And I had a big lump here on the side of my neck and looked like bloody had a bolt coming out of my side of my neck. But I think you create your own luck, and that's through the decisions that you make. That drives that ability for you to change. And I think, like with you, with what you're going through at the moment, I mean, there'll be elements of luck that things will just fall into place at the right time that will help you on that overall journey that you're currently taking from what you were doing to what you're doing now. So.
Yes. That.
And plus,
I agree.
And plus, I'm stubborn.
Well, that helps too. That helps as well. Yep.
Yes.
So, obviously the last 16 years since being a dad.
Yep.
You've gone through a bunch of adversity with your own health, but meanwhile you're also raising a daughter. That adds more stress, more challenge, but a lot more joy and a lot more fun and stuff in your life as well. So as when you're going through your own stuff, you're trying to raise a daughter, and also at the time too you're working as a bank manager or in the bank space as well. Yep. So what was that like, juggling all of life's things? Because when you think of like you just mentioned about me, but like you got a bunch of other guys, dads that are out there that are doing the 9-to-5 grind, but raising kids, but maybe not necessarily also trying to survive literally on with the stuff that you're going through. So how's that sort of go? How's that juggle go for you, or how did that juggle go for you at the time?
Look, like all of us, I have my good days, I have my bad days. But I think one of the things that I've been really good at doing is compartmentalizing things. So I don't worry about things until, well, that's not true. I didn't used to worry about things until they happened. And I was very much the case of dealing with what was in front of me. One of the things I can remember, we went to a sleep school because my daughter was struggling to sleep, my ex-wife and I. And my ex-wife was trying to get our daughter to do something, and she didn't want to do it. And then she just came over to me and she just started playing with blocks, and I just started playing with the blocks with her because that's what she wanted to do. And the nurse at the time said, you were really good at just being in the moment right then and dealing with, this is what Kari wants to do, so that's what I'll do. That may not have been what we wanted her to do, but that's what she wanted to do. So I think the key for me is whatever situation I'm in, whether it's being a dad, a stepdad, a partner, an employer, an employee, whatever the case may be, is just being 100% present in that moment. Just simple things for me were when my staff would come in, and I got feedback off my staff that I'd be sitting there looking at my computer screen while they were talking to me, and they didn't feel like I was actually listening to what they said. So for me, it's very much about living in the moment, living in that particular moment and cherishing that moment, because a couple of times in my life, 3 or 4 times in my life, I wasn't sure how many more moments I was going to get. So for dads out there, if you're with your kids and you got your kids for a weekend or a night or whatever the case may be, make the most of that time. Don't be on your phone. You'll be a week where you don't have your kids, where you can spend every minute of every day on your phone if you want to be. But really make the most of that. And it doesn't mean you have to just shower your kids with every single gift and, let's go and do this and let's go and do that. The best things I've found for my daughter was to just have routine. And by being in the moment and setting aside time to help her with her homework, setting aside time, if it's with my employees who were working for me at the time, to help them with what they needed or whatever. It might mean that I have to stop what I'm doing, but at that point in time, I treat that person that I'm dealing with as the most important person in the world, and nothing else matters. So that's the big takeaway for me with my daughter and managing my health. And like, my daughter still doesn't know what's happened the last to the depth of, she doesn't know how close I was. I've never told her that I was told I had terminal cancer. She knows that I had cancer and she knows that I'm okay now, but she never knew I had terminal cancer. But every time I saw her, in the back of my mind was, how many more of these opportunities are we actually going to get? So, yeah, it's really about being present, and just, thinking back at what it was like when you were a kid, and you're out playing in the street with your mates and you have no concept of time whatsoever, what's taken place, because you're that engrossed in what you're doing. Just do that with your kids, do that with your staff, do that with your friends. Because as I said, and it's just, one of my mates again said, the only difference between me, when I got the diagnosis, the only difference between me and any other person out there is I've been told I've got 12 months, but he goes, I could go out and get hit by a bus tomorrow. So I should be making the most of every opportunity as you are. I should be doing the same with my kids now. So that actually changed the way he actually interacted with his kids a lot after my diagnosis.
Yeah, I think that's, when you hear people's stories like yours, and, no doubt that when people listen to this, they're going to have that same kind of feeling and an energy within them to go, I need to stop for a minute. The chaos of the day, the stress of the workplace, and, the high demands and all that kind of stuff on our time. And everyone knows, we're constantly pushed from every angle and pulled from every angle in today's society. You got social media, you got the phone on all the time. Anyone can contact you with emails, text messages, all those kinds of things. Plus you're at the workplace, and then you go home and you've got the family and all that kind of stuff. So, it's like you said, spot on. It's about creating that, compartmentalizing those things. So when you're at work doing that. When you're at home doing that. When you're playing sports, you're doing that. And then, that's to go a little bit further than that, that's essentially when you're having those conversations with people and you're looking you're looking to have that connection with them at that particular time, and doing those activities, it's one, it's creating a mindful activity, so your body's enjoying it, your mind's enjoying it. It's just focused on that one thing. It's calm. And that other thing that I was going to say that I forgot about. So I agree 100%. It's spot on. And one of the things that come out of that too, which I think you may have considered or not, but with all the things we've talked about today already, but when you were doing that with your staff, having conversations with them, listening, taking that feedback, being present with your daughter and helping her with her homework and just being there, those kinds of things, and obviously your mates as well. You're having plenty of good conversations with your mates, and what's legacy look like for you?
What does legacy look like for me? It's probably something that I, up until 8 months ago, had not thought about at all. For me, I think I just want to be known as someone who showed the people around him that he cared, and that he loved them, and that I was genuine. And if people can take that away with me, they go, do you know what? If he said he was going to do something, he did it. And if he said he was going to do something, he actually meant it. And, caring can come across in so many ways. It can be intimate, it can be physical, it can be emotional. It can just be picking up the phone, and, you hear it all the time. And I think I heard Nick mentioned it the other day that, he's picked up the phone and spoken with a few people, or you see something come through on an email or a text, and you might go, actually, I'm going to pick up the phone and just call that person. And you're not doing it because you want to look good, or you're not doing, you don't put a comment on the yarn barn because you want to look good. Most people who put comments on there actually care in some form. They may not, a perfect example of that for me is yourself and Mike when I went through what I went through. Now, we've never met. I've met Mike, but you and I have never met. But we've known each other for about 5 years now. But you checked in on me for a good month every day without fail. Now, if you don't care about someone, you can do that for a couple of days, and then you just, every time I speak to him, he says he's fine. So that's, for me, that's really important, because that's building connections with people and having relationships is really the key to life for me. Because you can impart knowledge, you can impart wisdom, you can impart your life learnings, or more importantly, you can just sit and listen and learn off other people by those connections. And that's, so caring, genuine, and just know that he would do anything for me would be what I would want to be my legacy.
I think that's, I think if you're not there already, you're very, 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 very close to being all those things. And, I think anyone that knows you, anyone that's connected with you knows that about you. And, I think we haven't met in person, that's for sure. And I'm thinking this year is going to be the year where we do.
It is. It is.
What's for the guys, you've been in the yarn barn for a while. I suppose two-part question. Why are you in there? And secondly, what's for the guys that are maybe listening to this that are new to it, what's some sort of, I suppose, guidance or sort of ideas that you could provide to them to get the most out of it?
Why? Because I could see the struggles I was going through as a single dad, raising my daughter was 6 when my ex-wife and I split up, and I went been and I was a pretty hands-on dad. I was a stay-at-home dad for 18 months. So I figured there had to be something out there where there was like people who were single dads, or just dads in general. You don't even have to be a single dad, just to be a dad, that they were going through similar things that I went through. I've got a really good close group of friends, but that said, I was single. They were all married or in relationships. And so I actually originally did it to go, hey, I might be able to, I'll do a bit of a search and see what I can find around that. And I just typed in Dad's Network. That's all I typed in into my search engine in Facebook. And ADN came in up. And I think back then it might have been less than 1,000 people. And I thought, no, I didn't know where it was based. I thought it was probably based in a capital city. Didn't think it was based in outback Western Australia, that's for sure. Shout
out Karratha.
Correct. I just joined it to go, hey, I don't sleep much. I have about 4 hours sleep a night. So somewhere, someone's going to be up and I can have a chat to them. And that was pretty much why I joined it. I didn't have any idea that it would actually be what it has been for me and be what it is and what you've created. And this is not about blowing wind up your ass or anything like that, but for a bloke who was sitting around his computer one day and decided, I need to help out the blokes in the local Pilbara area, to now, I think I saw someone over in Iceland or over in the snow overseas somewhere with an Australian Dad's Network t-shirt on.
Over in France,
yeah. And I'm like, wow, that that blew my mind, let alone what it would have done for you when you saw it. And then I remember you sent out an email or you posted something about, looking to set up a committee. And I'm always one for getting on a committee. I love being on committees. Gives me something to do, gives me something to talk about. And I figured with my financial background and my general knockabout bloke background, I could probably add some value to the committee. And it was also, and it's been good now because I'm actually starting to get into it around giving back to the community. I've utilised a lot of services over the years with my health, and I'm actually going to be able to start to give back to some communities with some volunteer work over the next 12 to 18 months with a couple of organisations. We're just in some discussions at the moment to lock in me being a part of those organisations probably 2 days a week. But this was another way that I could do that was, I do say a lot, but I also do read a lot and do listen a lot. And I'll only give feedback to people if I think it would be value add to them. So that was why I got involved. I think what can people get out of it? It's like the old saying, you only get out of it something what you put in. And that doesn't mean you have to comment. I've got mates of mine who have never commented on publicly on our forum, but we'll catch up and they'll talk about it. And they'll talk, did you see the thing the other day on that? And that's, commenting isn't for everybody. Being like Nick and I and sharing our life stories isn't for everybody. Some people are quite happy, and it's great when you see a name that you haven't seen before and they'll put just a comment. And it's nothing too in-depth, but it's just a comment as if to say, hey guys, I'm here, I saw that, great topic, whatever. So, if you've got something to add. The old saying, it's never a stupid question. It's never a stupid response to someone's question. There's never a stupid question to ask because you never know, that piece of advice that you give someone could help to turn someone's life around for the better by that connection that you've made with them. And as I said before, life's all about connections. So, put into it what you want to put into it. Don't think because you see, the same 40, 50 odd blokes commenting all the time that you can't. It's not a yarn barn for 40 blokes. It's a yarn barn for 2,500 people and growing. And the more people contribute, and if there's things you want to see, like I threw out that thing the other day about there's plenty of single dads out there, who may not really know how to cook that well, or may not know how to cook at all. Would doing videos help them? I've got plenty of free time now. I'm not working, so I can sit there and cook some basic meal. It doesn't have to be, as someone said, you want it to be quick, easy, and something that's healthy for your kids. So, come up with ideas of things you want to see. If you feed that back through the channels, there's a link there. It goes through to you. If you don't want to put it on a public forum, or contact any of the members of the committee, and we can raise that, because the more input we get, the more ideas we get, because that's what this is what you started it for, is for all of us. So the more people who have input, the better off, and more value add we will be.
Yep. 100%. Love it. And I love that, we've just started a new program inside the Yarn Barn, Cooking with Andy.
Correct.
So that's going to start in the next week or so. We'll just do that
this week. No one wants to eat what I'm eating this week, so we'll do that next week.
Well, yes, we'll do that next week, and I'll start the graphic design for some fun art for that, and we'll get that up and running. Awesome. I've got two questions left. One is harder than the other.
Okay.
So the first one, we'll go with the hard one first. The first one is, so going through what you've been through in your life, the multiple times where, your life could have ended, and we are talking today. What is next for Andy? What is the, you talk about volunteering, you talk about working on committees and things, but what's that sort of, if you were to just capture what the next sort of chapter of your life is in, say, a word or a few words, what does it look like?
So my daughter's 16, she's about to start year 11. So I've really just focused on the next 2 years about connecting. So connecting with friends, connecting with family, connecting with those groups that I want to support. I'm in a unique position at the moment for at least the next 2 years where I don't have to work, financially stable. And so one of the things that when I was going through everything I went through was, and one of the groups that I'm talking to does a lot with nurses. Everyone talks about the surgeons who did the transplant, and they're a massive part of your recovery. But at the end of the day, if it's not for the nurses who are at your bedside, because they see you for 2 months, they had to come in and see my ugly face for 2 months. The poor buggers, they should have got multiple pay increases just for that. So I'm working with, my plan is to work with an organisation 1 day a week to help make them more financially savvy and more financially better off. An alarming stat that I heard the other day, nurses who are retiring at the moment, 80% of them only retire with $85,000 in the bank of their super, which is not much when you retire at 65 to have $85,000 to live on. So it's really about that, being around for my daughter as she does year 11 and 12. My elder stepdaughter's about to do year 10, and the next one's doing year 8. And then my stepson has got his last 2 years of primary school. So for me, it's all about connections, and I have a bucket list that I drew up 2 days after I got the news. I've knocked 80% of my bucket list off. So nice. My plan is over the next 2 years. And one of those things was to go and see yourself and Chris and Sean. I've already met Sean. He was nice enough to fly over here and see me. But my plan is to come over to Perth as one of my bucket items lists and meet you guys. And cool. Miss Chris Pickett as well. And so, yeah, that's the next 2 years for me. Post that, don't know. Don't know what that looks like. But if there's one thing I've learned, don't look too far in advance, because you can waste a lot of time planning on stuff that you may never get to achieve. So 2-year plan at the moment. Yeah, living the crap out of life, which we'd all love to do, but unfortunately having to earn income stops most of us doing that. And I don't have that now.
Yep.
So
Awesome. That's also a bumper sticker, I reckon. You could do those and sell those.
yeah.
Living the crap out of life. Hey, last question.
Yes.
And this is to you to think. I've asked a few questions, but have I missed anything? Is there anything that you want to share with anyone that's listening that I haven't prompted or asked?
Look, and it's a thing that we as blokes are not very good at doing, by and large, and that is looking after our own health. So I encourage everyone. Yeah, I'll be surprised if there's another person on here who listens to this podcast who's had 2 double lung transplants, had half their stomach taken out, all that sort of stuff. But health is important, and yes, it can be mental and it can be physical. And it can be as simple as, so before we started this podcast, unfortunately, this week I'm having a diet of white chicken, fish, chicken loaf, rice, and white bread, because on Friday I'm going to have a colonoscopy because I have a history of bowel cancer in my family. And one of my mates said, that'll be right, after everything you've gone through, you'll end up with bowel cancer. We're no longer talking, so shout out to you, Paul, if you're listening. But make sure you have regular health checks with your GP. Get a GP. Understand what your family health history looks like, because time and time again, and this is not to get into a debate where people are having heart attacks and everyone's blaming it on COVID and all that sort of stuff, but a good friend of mine had a heart attack when he was 38 years old. Didn't realise that his family had a history of heart conditions. So the biggest thing for me is look after yourself, because if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after your kids, you can't look after your partner, you can't look after whatever the case may be. The old saying on an aeroplane, put your oxygen mask on first before you put the oxygen mask on those around you. You're of no good to someone and you're of no good to your kids, your family, your parents, if you're sick or you are 6 foot under. So please take the time, make an appointment to see your GP just to get a general health check. They'll take some bloods. Don't be a sook. If I can have what I've had over my life, you can go and have a simple finger prick. And if you can't, then feel free to come to my house and I'll give you a finger prick for some blood instead. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult, and it could be something that actually saves your life.
Well said, mate. Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story. Really appreciate your time, and we are going to make sure that you're over in Perth, and we're all going to catch up.
For sure.
We do have a big hub down in Perth, so we'll make sure that it's not just us all the time. We'll share your visit with all the crew. But
awesome.
Mate, a ton of takeaways from this. I really appreciate your time, and I know you're going to give this will give a lot of value to the guys that are listening to it. So thank you very much, mate, and we'll talk to you really soon.
Thanks, Liam. Thanks, guys. Take care.